What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of The Legislative Director, talking about legislative things. Here she is. There's so many pieces of legislation rolling around up there. She may be rendered mute. Legislative Director Amber Marr, with her as always, sometimes wish I'd be rendered mute. Not the Legislative Director, Jason Topsy. Amber, the slow march to the session's halfway point is still going on. A long session continues to feel like its namesake, incredibly long. How are you doing?
Good. I feel like we say this about long session every year, but now I feel like it has gone really fast over the past 2 weeks. And I'm starting to feel like we don't have enough time left, before the bills switch chambers.
Yes.
And so we're coming up on deadlines here shortly. And now it's sort of a race to the end to what we can get done before those deadlines hit.
And then we would start it all over again.
And then we start all over again. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're here. Always great to see you. Why don't we just dive right in? Because there's like 5 or 6 bills that we're going to talk about today. And then we're going to show some fun clips and photos and stuff like that from when our legislative team was in the house this week. So let's get into it. What's the first bill we want to talk about?
House Bill 1005, which I believe we have talked about before.
Have we?
I don't know. But in case we have.
This housing?
Yes.
Oh, I got it.
It's housing.
Okay.
It actually establishes the Residential Housing Infrastructure Assistance Program and the Residential Housing Infrastructure Assistance Revolving Fund. What does that mean? Basically, what we had heard through the Housing Task Force last year over the summer and into the fall was that in order to build some of these affordable housing structures, what was the most expensive part was the infrastructure that did not exist. And so oftentimes they would have to build and exist in areas where there might already be some infrastructure because it just is too expensive. Well, this is supposed to help with that so that they can developers and builders can apply for these funds to help build out the infrastructure, and then that would cover those costs and they can still build the structures. So it would actually lessen the cost of homes that are being built because the infrastructure would be covered by grants. So we were really excited that House Bill 1005 does help build out that pipeline for affordable housing just by extending the infrastructure for communities who are currently struggling to fill that need. Let's see. I was just going to say one other thing about this bill that I don't believe that we mentioned in the past. We really appreciated, and I'm sorry, we supported this along with the Hoosier Housing Needs Coalition. We do sit on that coalition. This bill would also create a ranking system that would prioritize projects. So one of those ranking line items actually included those who have voluntarily revised zoning and rules to allow for higher density development, such as the construction of other housing types like accessory dwelling units, manufactured and modular homes, and the adaptive reuse of commercial buildings for residential use. Keyword, accessory dwelling units, and that is huge.
ADUs.
Yes.
As we like to say in the biz.
Yeah, yes. And I think what's important, the reason why I'm bringing this up again is because it actually passed out of the House 91-6.
It's a pretty healthy majority.
It's great. And it's moving on to the Senate, so we will be working on this as well after their halfway point.
Awesome. What's next?
Senate Bill 114.
What's that about?
It's you.
Oh, it is. That's right. As you recall, last week we talked about I testified in committee. I think we started talking about it and then my eye fell out. So for those of you that were watching previously, I had a little contact issue, powered through because I'm a professional. Not really. I'm just kind of having some fun with this. I'm not a professional. Don't try this at home. Anyway, 114.
Yes.
As you recall, this is something that we testified in the Senate Utilities Committee, and it has to do with receivership of past due utility bills. Long story short, if there was a landlord that had an apartment complex or property that where the landlord was paying the utility bill rather than the tenant. So it was the tenant just pays their rent and utilities all in one bill, pays it to their landlord. If that landlord stopped paying those utility bills to the point where they're going to be disconnected or things along those lines, the utility would be able to collect that money from the landlord through this legislation. We supported it because it would lessen the likelihood that somebody, through no fault of their own, may get their utility shut off. So that was why we supported it. It passed out unanimously out of the committee.
Senate? Oh.
Out of the committee. Jumping ahead.
We already said that last week.
I know, but now I'm saying it again because it's that important. And then it also
okay.
And then it also passed unanimously, 50-0, out of the Senate and is now moving on to the House. So
yes, 50-0, amazing.
That's great stuff.
Yep.
Cool. Well, yeah, that was fun. I can go home now. Nope.
No.
We got more bills to talk about. Cool. Let's do it. What else do we want to talk about?
Senate Bill 334.
Okay. Let's pretend like I don't know what that is.
So one of our partners, Feeding Indiana's Hungry, actually was wonderful to include us in some of these conversations, as well as this particular bill. Senate Bill 334 is the simplified application for SNAP benefits. And this bill just reduces barriers for the SNAP program on individuals 60 and over. It's not that it allows more individuals to get on SNAP, but it does allow someone who is on SNAP to stay on longer without having to go through the application process. So it's very cumbersome. This just helps older adults to be able to continue with their SNAP benefits. I believe it was, I'm going to get this wrong, but it extends it to 36 months, basically.
Okay.
And we are very supportive of that. A lot of times nothing changes. I think that is the biggest point here, is that extending that time frame just allows individuals where the majority of the time their information is not changing. So just allowing them to have a little bit more time to not have to fill out an additional application process is helpful. And so
agreed.
it passed out of the committee 7-0.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep.
Now moving on to the full Senate.
So yes, and we wanted to thank Senator Yoder and Senator Walker for carrying that, as well as Feeding Indiana's Hungry and Emily Weichert Bryant for allowing us to be a part of this conversation.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right. What else?
Anything
else?
Oh, yes. Before we dive into housing, I wanted to mention that House Bill 1547, which is finance charges for supervised loans. That was heard in committee this week. No vote was taken. We also belong to a coalition called Hoosiers for Responsible Lending. And that coalition, we testified in committee in opposition of the bill. Many of our listeners and viewers will remember, or maybe not, but I'm sure that they will, over the past couple of years. And by that, I mean 5, 6, 7 years.
I'm pretty sure if you've watched this show since we started,
yes.
And I think we're now officially on season 6 of this show, you've heard us talk about this issue or issues like it, either about payday loans or small installment loans or loans that are payday adjacent or in the vicinity of payday loans. Talked about it a lot because there's been a lot of legislation, and it seems to have returned in some form, kind of, again this session.
Yeah, just to be clear though, this, as the bill is written, it does not touch the payday loan statute, which is
different from previous years.
Yes, in years past. So it still allows, payday still continues. It just, it doesn't touch that chapter in this bill. What it does do is it changes the interest rate for supervised loans from roughly, there's a lot that goes into this, and we are going to have, hopefully we'll have someone on here next week to describe a little bit more about this, because I am not an expert here, but it is raising the rates to 36%. And what that means is it sort of opens it up for all other loans to then charge a top APR of 36%, which is very high. And Andy, who is on our coalition and is an amazing expert on this information, he's going to try to describe some of this next week and why we oppose this so much. But essentially, this is just another product that could get consumers in an additional cycle of debt.
Okay.
So.
All right, so a little preview for
Yeah.
next episode where we'll have a guest who can really dive into the nitty-gritty on that bill and why it's not great.
Because it's coming back next week.
Okay.
So while there was no vote taken this week and it was testimony only, the chairman mentioned that there will be some work on amendments and we will see what next week brings.
Okay.
So, and we're currently meeting with the committee members and just trying to get a feel for kind of what this is going to look like.
Okay.
So, yes, we oppose House Bill 1547, but we need to continue to have conversations and figure out where we're going to be. So stay tuned next week, not only for a much better description of the bill and how this changes what we already have, just know that it is a product that really affects consumers in a negative light.
All right. Tune in next week for more information about legislation that's not great.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Lastly, 2 bills, one in the House, one in the Senate, kind of the same topic. We're just going to merge the two together, if you will, in the discussion.
Yeah.
Around housing.
Housing. House Bill 1148, which is the enforcement of habitability standards, and Senate Bill 202, which is various housing matters. They're very similar. And I thought I brought this in here. Let's see if I did.
Bust out that information.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Give me here we go. I found it.
Still looking one page.
Okay, so Senate Bill 202, House Bill 1148. Currently, they have not been given a hearing. We are asking the committee chairs on both the House and the Senate side to allow it to have a full hearing.
And which committee is this?
Judiciary.
Okay.
Both
House
Senate Judiciary, House
Senate
Judiciary.
It's
yeah.
hard to say.
And essentially the biggest piece in these bills, if you remember nothing else that we talk about, this allows tenants to ask for a court date to hold their rent in escrow pending repairs. So when we say habitability, it means, items that are not being cared for, like your heat, your air, your water, making sure that you have things to be able to live in the space that you're living and that it's habitable. This would allow a tenant who is not getting what they need from their landlord to fix those items to put their rent in escrow. It would reduce rent until the repairs are made, which means the tenant would still have to pay their rent, because in Indiana, if you do not pay your rent, you can be evicted, no matter the circumstance. So this would allow someone to pay their rent into an escrow until these repairs are made, and then the landlord would get their money. And so it is not supposed to be a retaliatory idea. It's just supposed to be for the landlord and the tenant to be able to come to an agreement that these items should be fixed in a timely manner. However, that is a contentious piece to these bills, is the escrow part. So we're working with all the authors. We're working with all of the chairmen of both committees and committee members. And thank you to our legislative team that was here this week. And this topic was what they worked on at the State House. They worked the entire Judiciary Committee on the House side and the entire committee on the Senate side, making sure that we expressed our support for this concept in these bills, and then also just encouraging the committee members to ask the chairperson, because the chairperson in the Senate is a woman and the chairperson in the House is a man, that they also encourage them to hear the bill as well. But we have an uphill battle, and again, with deadlines looming, we basically have next week to get these 2 bills a hearing.
So a little bit of a full court press, if you will, to try to get that through. The legislative team worked really hard this past week and talking to legislators out in the hallway and passing along information about it and why it's so important. You know, Indiana is only one of like 5 or 6 states
I believe
that doesn't have some sort of option like this for tenants, whether it be putting it into escrow or like a repair and deduct kind of deal. Either way, Indiana is in the extreme minority of states in this country that do not have something along those lines for folks. So this is really the kind of not only like, you know, just protect tenants and, you know, landlords to make sure that they're holding them accountable. But Indiana is way behind on this one.
And I think a point that one of our legislative team members made that I felt was amazing, that I have used in all of my discussions, and she did as well when she was talking with legislators. She used to be a landlord. And in the state she previously lived, they had this escrow law. And I believe it was 24, 27 units. I probably have that wrong. So let's just bear with me here. But her tenants never had to take advantage of the escrow. And so I think that this really does not affect good landlords. This is just there for ones that are really not caring for their units.
Yes.
So I think that's another positive about this, is that if you're already taking care of everything that you're doing, that's fantastic.
Business
You
as
will
usual.
never, you probably won't even know that this law exists because no one will need to use it.
Yeah.
It's just really trying to get at the bad actors, and we know not everyone is a bad actor.
Yep.
So.
Okay. So yeah, a bit of a week, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yep. I mean, this is just how it goes.
Yeah, 'tis the season.
Right.
Well, it was good.
Oh.
What?
Sorry. I would be remiss if I did not also thank Andrew Bradley from Prosperity, Indiana, and Hale Crumley, also from Prosperity, Indiana. They came to talk to our legislative team and helped us describe all of these housing issues, and also from the perspective of our coalition of the Hoosier Housing Needs Coalition. So I almost forgot to say that they joined us for our legislative team day and came over to the State House and just helped us with everything. So almost forgot.
Good job.
That was very close.
Yeah, we got to make sure we gave them a shout out.
There's a lot of things to remember.
Yeah, that was great. Cool. Yeah, we appreciate them helping out. I think our legislative team really appreciated having them around and having that expertise on the issue, so that they felt a little bit more comfortable when they were over there talking about it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And our legislative team just crushed it. Long day for them too when they were here, but it was worth it.
Absolutely. They're
that building likes to hear from other people or from others, and not just me.
I don't know. I mean,
they see me every day.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
It's good to mix
Switch
it up. Mix it up a little bit. All right.
Yeah.
Well, just good work.
You too.
I think everybody's gonna go now and take a nap.
Yeah. There's not time for that.
No time for sleeping. That is true.
You
Okay.
do look like you might be ready.
Who, me?
Are you falling asleep over there?
That is code for you look like trash.
I just look over there and it looks like you're about ready to go to bed.
I might. I don't know.
I'm sorry that my updates are putting you to sleep.
That is not the case at all.
Okay.
That you did a great job. You continue to do a great job.
So great. I thought I heard you snoring.
Well, I hope everybody that's listening apparently is a more active listener than I was during this show.
Look, we're taking feedback on how to keep you awake. Okay.
Feedback is a gift. Everybody, remember that. Remember these bills that we talked about today.
Because you don't.
Somebody's got to remember it, because I wrote stuff down. Look, I had a little notepad here. I took notes. I do things. Okay. I think we should end it here. Before I get into more trouble or fall asleep, whichever comes first. Amber, great work. We'll be back at this. Do this again next week.
I can't wait to see what happens. Your eyeball fell out last week, and now you're falling asleep this week. Who knows what the future holds?
And that's why you tune in every week to the Legislative Director talking about legislative things. We'll see you next week. Bye.